Morning, everyone, and welcome to this Perth County Council meeting for Thursday, February 6th. I'm Warden Doug Kellum. I call this meeting to order. I asked the clerk to note the starting time is 9:01. We do have regrets today from Councillor Duncan, and joining us via Zoom is Councillor Kasenberg. Welcome, Todd. This time I'd like you to bow your heads for a moment of reflection. Thank you. We acknowledge that Perth County is situated on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe. We have long-standing relationship with the land and water throughout the region. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse, Indigenous, Métis, Inuit people who call this territory home. As a county, we have a responsibility for reconciliation and continued stewardship of the land on which we live and work. Are there any additions for today's agenda? Seeing none, I do have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting that. Does anyone have any community interest to close at this time? Seeing none, if it arises throughout the meeting, please do so at that time. Thank you, Tyler. Now, I have a motion that the February 6, 2025 agenda be approved. Moved by Councillor Orr, second by Councillor Wilhelm. All those in favor? And that is carried. Council, we do have the consent agenda. There are 11 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything the council wishes to extract to discuss? Councillor McKenzie?
I think it would be fitting for us to support 6.10.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I have a motion that reads as follows. That council receives the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.11, with the exception of 6.10, and approves the January 23, 2025 council minutes. Moved by Councillor Eggett, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no public meetings at this time.
610.
Oh, 610, okay.
I just make a motion that we support that. I think under the current circumstances between Canada and the US that any support that we can show to our federal government the way we feel, I think is important to do so. And for that reason, I would move that we support that.
Perfect. And send it off to
It goes to Halt, and I don't know whether you want to send it to John Nader or whoever. I don't even know who it says to send it to on here, to be honest with you.
all right, follow that. So Walter is moving it. Do I have a seconder? By Councillor or Deputy Warden Tchaikovsky. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So yes, we do have no public meetings, so we'll move right into closed session. And the motion reads as follows: that Perth County Council move into closed session at approximately 9:04 a.m. in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act SO 2001, C25 as amended, to consider matter pertaining to political or potential litigation negotiations, verbal update to CAO. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Wilhelm. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we're now back in open session. We'll move on to staff reports. Item 9.1, we have our Economic Development Officer, Justin Diaz, giving us a report on Ontario Transit Investment Fund eligibility update. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you. Good morning, Warden Kellum and members of the County Council. So the report included in the agenda is an information update on information previously presented to the County Council about the Ontario Transit Investment Fund, or OTIF. So as outlined in the report, information about the forthcoming OTIF program was announced in early 2024 at the Ontario Transit Association conference. And then in October 2024, the actual OTIF guidelines were released, which included a number of eligibility criteria, which I've outlined in the report. And the key point that was mentioned at that time that the OTIF, through the OTIF guidelines, through conversations and guidance from the MTO staff, in consultation with their SCT, Southwest Community Transportation Partners, Key guidance that we're getting from the ministry was that OTIF was not intended to support ongoing operations of the CT-funded program, pilot projects, including PC Connect and others. Based on the criteria within OTIF, this council led a delegation to the minister at Roma. And based on that fault with MTO staff, it was determined that although the OTIF guidelines haven't changed, according to the website or any of the overfacing documents, there was an openness from the minister to see an application come forward from Perth County. So based on that, there still is a guidance that OTIF is not designed to be a long-term funding program for operations, but that could potentially support CT projects in the short term with the sustainability plan over the long term developed. So we included the information in the report about the OTIF funding, some of the numbers that would be applicable if we were to apply for OTIF. I hadn't previously included those because we were told we weren't eligible. So that's what's before council. I just wanted to provide that for information based on that delegation with the minister at Roma and the outcomes of that.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions or comments for Justin at this time? Councilor McKenzie?
I guess, basically, I guess two questions. First one is it too late to turn this thing around now? Because we've already canceled the contract that we had based on the information that we previously had. So I guess that's one concern. And I guess the other is there any desire from this group here to even look at it? Because if there isn't, there's not much sense going any further down the trail.
Okay, thank you. I think the first question, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, that's through the warden. So we had issued a notice to terminate or to discontinue the contract as March 31st with our service provider, Boyago. I have had subsequent conversations kind of following the delegation with the minister to find out what the status of the provision was. In their perspective, what I was told is that the buses are going to be there to March 31st. It's finished the contract. There are no immediate plans for those buses. The longer that we would wait to potentially reinstate a program, the more likely it is that there'd be some disruption with drivers being moved elsewhere or resigning. So there could be a disruption in terms of staffing, but the buses are currently not slated to go elsewhere. They're still there. They obviously would like to see the program continue, so they are providing some flexibility in that sense. But from the service perspective, that's kind of the status of where the buses are going and the driver situation.
Okay, thank you. With regards to Councilor McKenzie's second question, is there any desire from the council? Councilor Roman?
Yes, I can in good conscience support an investment for over 1.3 million for the next 5 years and possibly up to 2.6 million over 5 years. And I can't support that.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councilor McDermott?
I'll have to agree with Councillor Wilhelm. It's descending that we're going to, by 2030, we're back up to over $500,000 again. And I think that to try to get some funds now, how long it'll take to get those funds. And in the end, they're still not going to pay a very big percentage through time of what we will have to. And I think we have bigger hills to get over it.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to weigh in on this? Seeing none, council, we do have a motion in front of me that reads as follows. The council receives the Ontario Transit Investment Fund Eligibility Update Report for information. Moved by Councillor McDermott, second by Councillor Wilhelm. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Justin. Moving on to 9.2, Public Works in our agenda. We have Hannah Kahn, Agency and Stewardship Coordinator. The 2025 Spring Perth County Stewardship Program results. Hannah gets bills with her as well. Welcome, both of you.
Morning, Warden and Council. The Perth County Stewardship Program supports landowners in Perth County with the financial resources and technical expertise to develop stewardship projects to protect the virility of agricultural lands while enhancing natural assets on which we rely. 2025 is the second year of the County of Perth will support tree planting projects and forest management plans across the region. Following the success of the inaugural year, Perth County Council pledged $100,000 to the 2025 program intake. The 2025 Perth County Stewardship Program considers 2 application periods, one for the spring and one for the fall. The intake for spring 2025 opened on November 1st, 2024 and closed January 3rd, 2025 with 3 grant streams. A landowner stream for private lands, a community stream for nonprofit groups, and a woodlot stream for forest management plans. A total of 20 applications were received, 9 applications from West Perth, 5 applications from North Perth, 4 applications from Perth East, and 2 applications from Perth South. A total project value of these projects exceeded $151,000, with a request for funds of $56,537.46. These projects will complete 1 forest management plan and plant 3,592 trees and shrubs encompassing 28 native species. The applications, if supported in entirety, would add 6.99 kilometers of windbreak and 16.35 acres of natural asset to Perth County. It is a recommendation of the Agricultural Working Group that Council supports the approval of the 2025 Stewardship Program applications as presented, and that Council supports the remaining pre-approved funds of $43,462.54 to be allotted to a fall application intake of the Perth County Stewardship Program. If you have any questions, I would be happy to take them now.
Thank you. Councillor Smith?
Thanks through the warden. Thanks, Anna. Just a question in regards to the remaining funds that are there. We're going to suggest to allocate them to the fall planting stream. What's the amount there that's there right now for that in the fall? Which is allocated now in our budget?
$43,462.54.
Okay, then, so this fall planting stream is something new, or how did that come, or why is there not funds there for the fall planting stream?
Yes, to answer your question, Councillor. So Council pre-approved a budget of $100,000 for the 2025 year. With the applications that we've received this year so far, we have not used all the dollars. So we would like to have Council approve the existing applications as shown in the report and be able to use the remaining funds to issue a fall stream.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Agus?
Through you, Warden Kellum, I kind of disagree, just because the funds didn't all get used. I'd like to know where this fall stream, as Councillor Smith alluded to, where did it come from? That was not something that I thought Council was doing or this committee was doing. Also, I'd sooner see us put that money towards windbreaks on our road. We've had an awful lot of complaints if you watch Facebook, and you take it with a grain of salt, but there are people that are saying that in one county they have trees along their road and it's stopping the snow, and yet in Perth County we don't seem to have that. So if you know, I don't know what the urgency is to spend this money. If people don't want it, then fine, we put it back into our budget. We have other things, but if we really want to spend it, I'd sooner see that we put tree and windbreaks along some of our roads.
Thank you. I believe Deputy Warden Trentowski wants to weigh in.
Yep, thanks, Warden Kellum, through you. As the chair of the Ag Working Group, I just want to remind Council that when the program was set up initially, there always was the intent of 2 intakes, a spring intake and a fall intake. And what happened last year, because of the popularity of the program to the public, all the available funds were used immediately in the spring intake. And as a consequence, there was no fall intake for the 2024 year. The 2025 year is different in that an additional $25,000 was allocated to the program, and B, not all the funds available were taken up in the spring intake. And it's still a very, very good program for private landowners to engage in, given the nature of the decline in the forestry health in terms of, I'm thinking of the ash trees. there's still a need for the private landowners to engage in this program, and it's still a popular program, and I would support the recommendation presented to council, which was endorsed unanimously by the Ag Working Group. Thank you.
Thank you. So any other comments or questions? Councilor Orr?
Yes, I kind of want to weigh in here. I can see both sides here. Is there any way that the fall intake we could direct with special incentive to plant windbreaks? Would that be possible, just to adapt it?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. It was always the intention of the Perth County Stewardship Program to add streams as more money was allocated year over year. And living snow fences is a stream that we are looking at adding as one to highlight for landowners. Unfortunately, to answer the statement made by Councillor Egots is that living snow fences are amazing, but you have to have the buy-in of the landowners whose land is adjacent to the roads. And being able to support landowners who are wanting windbreaks and living snow fences on their own accord is a really great initiative to do through this program to start. And we are in the process of also identifying priority areas for living snow fences in the county, just in our general operations.
That's good. That's very good.
Just further to that, why wouldn't we plant the trees in our road allowance instead of on farmers' properties? It's nothing saying we have to have the farmers on board. If we want to plant them in our right of way, we can do that. Like, that was my intent, not to go to the farmers and try to get the farmers on board. It was to do it in our own places where we can.
Answer that, please.
Through the warden, in order to have an effective windbreak along the road, it needs to be placed at a certain setback from the road, travel portion of the road. And in many cases in the county, that separation would require that the trees or traditional snow fencing would be placed on private property.
McDermott?
No, that's just the point I was gonna make, that if anywhere you go, Wellington or Waterloo County, those windbreaks and stuff like that, they're well over on somebody's field. It's all about the wind coming up, going over the tree and then dropping the snow. So you gotta have it far enough away from the road so it won't drop those.
Anyone else? Councillor Smith?
So, but, thanks for the warning, but yeah, let's try and get the farmers to agree to that. So good luck.
Wojciechowski?
Through you, Warden, one other point of information I wanted to share with council, and it's indicated in the report from staff that some applications, or not as many applications, were perhaps received this time around for windbreaks on account of the criteria over providing funding for preparation, and particularly the seedlings, not so much the mature trees, but the seedlings. The committee has noted that, the Ag Working Group has noted that detail in this last application and is endeavoring to review that piece of criteria in time for the fall intake of applications. So it will be up, the committee will, the Ag Working Group will decide, but there is a possibility that it may be changed to include preparation work as part of being eligible for receiving funding when it comes to the seedlings, which typically are planted in a windbreak fashion. So just want to offer that information to council as well for their information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor?
Wanted to back that up too, that we are also at Ag Working Group looking at reviewing the tree bylaw potentially. And if we can work with farmers to get more of a buy-in, I think I support that. So that's all coming, but it's not there yet.
Anyone else? Seeing done, I do have a motion that reads as follows. That council receives the 2025 spring Perth County Stewardship Program Results Report, and that council supports the approval of the 2025 Stewardship Program applications as presented, and that council supports the remaining pre-approved funds of $43,462.54 to be allotted to a fall planting stream in the Perth County Stewardship Program. Moved by Deputy Warden Trentowski, second by Mr. McDermott. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for the report. Now move on to 9.3, Agenda Corporate Services. Director of Finance Treasurer Corey Bridges to give us the 2025 budget update. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you, Warden Kellum and council. The report within the agenda relates to just an update for council on the 2025 budget. As you're aware, we started this process back in November with the treasurer providing operational and capital 2025 budget overviews related to both the capital and operating budgets. The 2025 tax levy estimated is currently set at $25.1 million within the budget binder, representing a 13.18% increase from 2024. As mentioned by the treasurer, myself, we're emerging from this inflationary bump. Management have budgeted based on a lean approach that positions the county for future sustainability. The budget includes about almost $72 million in spending through capital and operating, with about $61 million in operations and $11 million in capital projects. Since the discussion on December 5th, there has been one minor change, removal of $25,000 from the legislative services budget related to a deferred project on giant hogweed. This had a minor impact to the overall budget, lowering the request levy from to 13.11%, or a reduction of just close to $14,500. In addition to that, updated related to growth percentages, 2025 impact on growth is about 1.77%. This would lower our tax rate for 2025 to 11.34%. Again, the 2025 proposed budgets are including just inflation and maintaining service levels. We are dealing with this inflation over the past two budget cycles and into this budget cycle, but we're promising seeing the trend on inflation to be easing going into 26 and 27 budgets. 2025 also used reserves to assist in the costs related to inflationary increases. And then this was an ability to exit that strategy. 2025 budget includes about $412,300 in reserves. That represents about 1.86% from the 2% that you see in front of you. Again, Perth County management and staff are very diligent, prudent, and frugal in how they provided the budget for 2025 and dealing with just the highest priorities for the increases. There's a chart within the report related to those 2025 corporate priority advancements related to staffing requests, as well as other needs for 2025. The 2025 proposed budget, the median typical single detached home, again, based on 2016 values of $282,000, would see an annual increase to their budget, their taxes about just over $100 or $1.99 a week. That is the report, the update provided. So if there's any specific questions from council, I'll try to answer them, but I do have management here to possibly answer other questions.
Thank you, Corey. Okay, we'll have the floor. Does anyone like to start off with any questions or comments for staff? Councillor Ames.
Okay, Warden, is this the time that we're going to go through? I would like to go through department by department. I'm not comfortable that we just get an overview here today and you expect us to, someone expects us to pass this. I have some questions in some of the departments, some of the things that are budgeted, what they're budgeted for, and I think this council needs to go through it and make some adjustments. There are an awful lot of businesses that are laying people off. I heard it this morning, Canada Post. I know there's another large business, they're gonna start, I don't know if it's public knowledge or not, but I have that through a family member, that they're laying off a whole lot of people too. People cannot afford, and I keep saying that, they cannot afford what we're trying to do. So I would like to see our budget go down lower. Also, I'd like to know, Corey mentioned that we took this 25,000 out. I didn't see that in the stuff that we got. The budget binder is still the exact same amount on, if it came out of legislative services, that it was when I got my line-by-line stuff. So I would like to see a more, showing us where things are, where it did come out. And yeah, we got a report saying it did. Where is that in the material that we got? But anyway, I'm not sure if the rest of council wants to go through department by department, but I think we need to.
Thank you for your question, comments. Councilor Wilhelm?
I agree with Councillor Higgins that I have a number of concerns in different departments, and I think that's probably the way to go is for by department.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? So with all due respect, that's fine. We can go through by department by department. We've had the budget, all of us, for quite some time now, so I'm hoping that we all have specific questions. So if it's council's wish to go through by department head, that is fine, but I hope everyone's prepared to ask the specific questions. Is that fair for everyone? All right. Okay, Corey, or would you like to start? Which department? And ask the specific questions.
Why don't we go,
Councilor Higgins?
why don't we go like it is in the budget binder that we got, so that we make sure we hit all the departments. That's kind of what I sat down and structured my questions and my concerns where I have. I also took the line by line that we got, and that's where a lot of my questions come from, more so than just the high overview.
Good. So Corey, I'd like to take the lead on this, and then Councilor Higgins, you can start off with asking questions. Go ahead.
Okay, I guess the first one I'll do is council. So if we go to the line by line, we're talking about that we need to make cuts here, and maybe it's time that council doesn't have so much money to go to the conferences. Maybe we should only have one conference that the upper tier pays for, and if you want to go to another conference, go through your lower tier. Because we're asking staff and everyone else to make amends here somewhere. I think council needs to make some kind of an amend as well.
Through the warden to Councillor Higgins, what is within the budget is the estimated amount of county councillors attending conferences. The allotment associated with the remuneration bylaw allows you to take a lot more with respect to the maximum. So there is a limit related to conferences, et cetera, from council. Councilors have $4,000 allotted. The warden has $6,000 allotted as their ability to utilize at the county level. So it is up to the purview of council related to this restriction or stipulation to look at that line item. But historically, that line item is based on what councils have utilized in the past.
Sorry, can I ask what page?
Page 82.
82, okay, thank you.
And if you go line by line, it's page 19. Just to, if I may, rebuttal, I realize that we're all allowed, but like I said, we're asking the rest of the departments to make some compromises here. So I think council has to compromise on something in our budget. And to me, that's, there's some that never use their conferences, there's some that max them out, there's some that just use a portion of it. But I think, you know, the conferences are getting expensive, really expensive. So maybe it's time that we take a look at at how many we go to, or we change our policies that only allows you to go to one. I know the policy, as you speak, it does refer different now, but I think that's something that council needs to look at.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, so I think it should remain at two per year, but let's lower it to Councilor Ige, lower the amount. Was it 4,000? Let's lower it to 3,000. That would be some savings. And then you're still allowed to go for your second conference, and if you go over, then it's on you. There's an easy way to save, what's that, 10,000 right there?
Through the word to Councillor Smith, if we had the maximum allotment within that budget line, you would have 9 councillors at 4,000 apiece, and then your warden at 6,000. So the line within the budget is based on historical use of county council using professional development for the purpose of conferences. Meaning that there are councillors historically that do not utilize the professional development within the county, but we do not budget the maximum. We budget based on history. So we don't budget the maximum amount allotted to a councillor. We budget based on what council has utilized in the past.
And it's time to change history. I know you've done it on the past of what everybody's doing, but going forward, I think it's time to change.
Okay, thanks. Sure, or Deputy Trustee?
Through you, Warden, so I guess my question is, what happens if either the warden or the deputy warden in the warden's capacity needs to attend a conference and budget is already spent, and it's a bit urgent and important business for the county, whether it's a delegation or something similar, what happens then, would be my question. That's a question for council or staff, whoever wants to answer it.
Very good.
Well, I would say you come back to council and say, we're at our max, we need to do this, can we find some money somewhere that we can go?
The supplemental question is, what if the request comes in between council meetings and needs an immediate decision, then what? Just throwing that scenario out there. This would be an unplanned event as opposed to a planned event.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Next question or comment? Sora?
If we are around the council, I'm on page 19 of this report. Just curious, in our county budget, we have 10,000 allotted for the county banquet. But this year we spent 16,000, but I don't think we had a county banquet.
No.
So can we clarify what was that expense?
The warden had provided a gift to all of staff related to, it was a Perth County embroidered item that was all the staff received in 2024 as like essentially a Christmas gift from the warden.
That wasn't 16,000.
Oh, okay.
What was that figure? It wasn't 16,000.
So it says forecasted actual 16,000
Yes,
under county banquet.
yeah.
That would have been, at the time, estimated, the actual spend was $9,000. So those amounts are forecasted in September when we pulled the binder together and forecasted to the end of the year. Actual spends can fluctuate based on actual dollars spent versus what management had forecasted to spend in those line items. So the actual spend was $9,000.
I guess I'm in a bad mood this morning, but you know what? That really scares not only that figure, but everywhere. That if we aren't, we need more accurate figures, what things we're at the end of the year, to project what our budget should be the next year. So going back to Councillor Orr, that tells me that 16,000 was spent, when actually it was only 9. So how many more figures are like that? There's gonna be an awful lot in here.
There'll be quite a few on the fact that this was provided back in September, once we did the forecast to pull the binders together in November.
But I realize that, but why aren't things updated? Like, I don't have an update. When we do Perth East, we have on a screen, we have an update of what things actually were in each department. So we know exactly what it is. This year, I don't know 1/4 what's even going on.
Yeah, again, it's essentially the timing when the budget binder was pulled together.
Well, I get that, but I think we need updates. We used to get updates years ago when things changed. Somebody would be handing sheets out every time we had a meeting of our updates. I don't have any updates of what's going on. You keep telling me, yeah, it was 13%, now it's 11. I don't see anywhere, I don't see any figures that really shows me that. Now I have figures that are 6 months old almost, which I find, maybe it's just me, but I find it hard to do a budget when I don't have more up-to-date figures.
So through the warden, once the process began back in, again, the summer, and then finalized essentially end of October, that is the document that was provided to the public. Again, forecasted amounts were based on, again, October. Yes, we have now been in the process of the budget for 3 months now. Yes, there are actuals and things have changed since the first of the binder coming out. Again, forecasted amounts are based on the best estimates of the management and staff at the time. Actuals are actual dollars. Our budget is based on estimated amounts. We don't budget based on actuals. We budget based on estimates because we cannot essentially budget something that we don't know is going to happen. So the binder that is in front of you is based on the best estimate at the time of staff. Yes, 3 months later, we have more actuals related to what the actual spends have been. But for the purpose of the budget discussion, it was not dealt with to provide a update related to change in actual dollar spend versus forecasted amounts.
Any other councillors have comments or questions for Corey? Councillor Wilhelm.
Okay, and Corey and I have discussed this, but I still think that BD 0002 ambulance costs, purchase price is listed at $746,000. And I calculated that we're at 650, almost 656,000. That's $90,000 over budget to what it actually is. And I have a bit of a problem with it.
Through the word to Councillor Wilhelm, we had this conversation. Again, was the estimate at the time. Yes, more information does come in, does make changes to that. With the essence of the fleet reserve is what I had indicated to Councillor Wilhelm. That $90,000 would be a benefit, but if you refer yourself to the continuity of reserves within the budget binder, our fleet reserve is estimated to be in the negative, in the red, and essentially being funded from other reserves, particularly capital, roads and bridges, funding that deficit. The $90,000 would just mean that the amount that is projected to be in the deficit would be $90,000 less than what it was projected to. Again, projections are just the best estimates. Our management deal with actuals as it goes through. And again, if something's gonna be significantly over budget, it will come back to council, because it is a concern. It's an item that council needs to be made aware of to make the decision related to be, the over budget related to what was estimated at the time. So the information related to capital, you have to look at it in the grand scheme of the 10-year capital plan versus 1 year potential cost savings. But it would be a benefit to the fleet reserve if the amount related to the fleet comes in at $90,000 less than what was put into the budget binder.
If I can continue?
Yes, you can.
FB 0047, we're looking at $50,000 to hire a consultant for locate a new Listo base. Concerned if this is the right year for that. Also, FB 0048, we're looking at a facility condition report, cost $70,000. That was last performed in 2017. Our staff look at these facilities at least a couple times a year, I'm sure. And I don't believe we need to hire a consultant to come in and review our facilities every 7 years or 8 years. Maybe we should be looking more like 10 or 15. And I'm not sure what council's wish is on that. I'm sure they set the policy on it, so. But to me, that 70,000 could certainly be put off for 3 to 5 years. And the other things, I have work in progress, totals $140,000. And that to me is for consultants, et cetera. And then we have another 30,000 for capital projects. I think it just seems way out of whack, like we should, do we even need to spend $100,000 on work in progress for years to come? And I just concerned at that amount. And then FB 0037, Overton base exhaust extension, $15,000 to extend exhaust on a motor. It just seems high. And then we're relocating the diesel generator from the courthouse for $65,000. Bought a generator for my house. It cost me less than $20,000. And it does my house and shop, so I'm a little concerned that that seems to be way out of line, and I don't know where the cost came from. If you'd like me to continue?
Sure.
Okay. I see the CAO's is a $140,000 increase. And this time, I don't know, it's, understand that our staff's extremely busy, but then we have EDC with the 73,000 increase. Legislative services, $82,000 increase. Our court costs are $124,000 increase. Public Works is $358,000 increase. And facilities are $326,000 increase. Like, oh cow. Like, I just baffled by the amount of increases.
It speaks to those larger, bigger gaps or increases. It's essentially trying to close gaps within Public Works, specifically has it been identified drainage work. We're trying to get a handle on the increased costs related to drainage work. There's also increased cost within roads related to just equipment use and to make sure we, replace our vehicles in a timely fashion. So those larger increases are more related to closing a gap. We consider closing a gap different than that's maintaining service level, but not essentially an increase to the overall service. Winter maintenance is another component of an increase within the public works. For facilities, we are now occupying more space, administration space. So more space occupied creates more cost. We have a new connecting link and 5 Huron, which is now 1 Huron space that we did not have in 2024 related to the construction. So those costs are now within the facilities of that division. The increases within the CAO relate to a couple of the items that are in the table that's within the report that is in front of you. There is a couple FTE requests, CAO students, and as well as the administrative assistant. Those costs is about 63,000 of the 140. Another 30,000 relates to additional special projects related to communication strategic plan. So there's another about $100,000 in that. These budgets do incorporate the inflationary increases to maintain service levels. So budgets do incorporate those costs within each of those individual budget lines. So again, we try to close the gaps where we've noticed gaps are. One gap is equipment rates are increased significantly, which does impact public works across the board. To ensure that we replace our equipment assets at a timely fashion, to ensure we have money in the reserve to replace those. Currently, we do not. Currently, we're in the red with our fleet reserve, and we have to close that gap. And amongst that, again, drainage is one of those biggest impacts that we're seeing at the local level that is impacting the county. The Executive Director of Public Works indicated that we just received 2 drainage amounts from lower tiers amounting in excess of $300,000, still related to 2024. So that, in essence, is we're trying to still maintain service level, close the gaps where we can to ensure that we can provide the same level of service as we provided in 24 in 2025.
Going back to the beginning when Councilor Agus said we are not passing the budget today, there was lots of comments and questions that we have about what direction are you looking for? Our CEO Wolf is making notes, but what is it you're actually asking for?
I'm looking for some things to come out.
Okay.
And, we have, and I'm looking that we analyze each department. I have things for each, not all of them, but a lot of the departments that where I think that there's some things that need to come out. And council needs to make that decision whether we want them out or we don't want them out. But we haven't had the opportunity yet to go line by line or department by department. We've been given high overviews, and that's all we've been given. Then I had to ask for line by line, and I realized that wasn't done last year, but when we got a 13% increase, we need to get this budget down below 10%. It's where I'm at. I'm not sure where everybody else is at, but that's where I'm at. But there are some things here that need to come out, so.
So you have a significant long list that you.
Well, I don't know. I'd like to do some departments and just ask, I did ask some questions. I asked why, and maybe the example I gave wasn't the greatest, but, you budget 8,000, you only spend 400, and you budget 8,400. I think there's some line items that need to come down a little bit. I think there's some things in this budget. You question hogweed, that should have been council's decision, whether it came out totally, whether it got deferred, or what happened. Yeah, we had a discussion on it already. I think it needs to come out totally, but there's other things that I want to touch on too.
Through word count to Councillor Eggetts, it was removed at last council. There was a report at last council to remove the giant hogweed from the 2025 budget. And as within the report, that's the notice that it was a reduction to the levy of 0.07%. To bring the levy request for 2025 to 13.11 from the 13.18 that was within the original budget binder. That has been only thing that has changed. That is the reason why it was just a paragraph within the report and not necessarily a update of the entire budget binder for councils and the public's review.
Right, and I was absent the last meeting, so I apologize, I didn't, but I still think there's some other things that, if you bear with me, I'd like to start going through some of them. So the first one I have is the CAO. We have money budgeted for a strategy communication report. We have 20 to 25,000 to hire a consultant. I don't believe at this time that we should be doing this. Bob touched on consultants there earlier. It's too much money for something that, yeah, communications may be important, but I don't think we need to be hiring somebody at $25,000 to tell us what we need to do.
So again, we'll continue with this, but just to keep the rest of the councillors, we're going to go around the table instead of the senior staff answering to questions today. Maybe they want to. We'll take all the information and then we'll bring it back. Is that fair? Everyone? Okay, so continue.
Okay, so I guess that's my first thing. I'm also concerned about hiring new staff in that department as well. You know, I was under the assumption we did that already when we switched staff around there a while ago, and somehow that person had a title after their name, and I thought that they were going to be that assistant. So I don't believe that we should be hiring an assistant for that department either, or a student. And if you want to jump to HR, so next where I have concerns, there are a couple line items there that I think that, and maybe they're hard to figure out, but I'll use professional development as one. It's budgeted at 38,000, 32 was spent, and now we're going up to 41. Why? We have no explanations in the budget why. There's good reasons, maybe, but I'd like to see, I asked for that line by line explanations, but that I didn't get that. So I don't know why we're, I can pick out all the lines I have. I've got about 4 or 5 in each department, that some of them, technology services is another one. We budgeted $5,200, we spent 54, and now we budgeted 5,500. Why?
Obviously 52 didn't cover it, so.
No, 5,250, and we spent $54.
Oh.
So I need explanations on some of these lines, why they went up, what they're really for. I don't have that, and I can't keep bouncing back to the binder trying to figure out.
So would it be prudent, as Councillor Wilhelm has done, would you like to set up a meeting directly with the staff that you have the questions for, so they can explain to you on a one-on-one?
I guess, but isn't all council, shouldn't they all know what's going on, not just?
Well, if they don't have the same question, Councillor.
Yeah, well, I get that,
If you
but-
need educated on that, then.
Well, maybe I'm beating a dead horse here. Is no one else concerned about the 13% or whatever it's down to now 11, or is everybody good with that? If everybody's good, then I'll shut up.
Councillor McDermott?
No, I think a good way to do this would be to have everybody put their questions in, and that way staff can answer them, and then we can, at our next meeting or whatever, we can have the questions and we can have the answer. And that way, everybody would see what the questions are, and everybody would see what the answers are. Just a thought. Because I'd like to see what the questions are and what the answers are too.
And as Corey started at the beginning, I think they have gone through it, and maybe you aren't aware of the questions that you may have. But Deputy Warden Trutowski and I have sat in on these meetings, and they have gone through. And it's just not, they're out there asking for everything, Councillor. But obviously you have some concerns for it, so I do like what Councillor McDermott has said.
Well, I do realize that, but I think we need to change the budget process. It's one of the things that we need to do.
It's another conversation.
Yes, it is. Okay, but then the next one, do you want me to keep going through, or
I'll
you?
do stop there and go on to Councillor McDermott. If you have none, then we can go on. If you want to submit yours after, that is fine.
That's fine. Oh,
Deputy Warden Trutowski? Any comments or questions at this time?
No comments or questions at this time, other than to say, Councillor Wilhelm does make some good points about possibly deferring a couple things such as the facility study, the overall facility study. I would be concerned about the impact of delaying the listable, consideration of the listable EMS station. Given that there's increasing demand and growth for EMS services, we can't ignore it. It has to be done. Whether it's done this year or next year, I guess that can be discussed, but it does have to be done sooner rather than later would be my first impression. Other than that, I don't have any far-reaching questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilhelm?
Well, I've mentioned mine.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Yes, just to echo Councillor Eggett's, if we can get this to below 10%, I'd be much more comfortable, even though it is 10%. I'd be more comfortable whether it's through some of the suggestions from council or, yeah, I went through this for a number of years back in Perth East with our library board. We see, we didn't spend, we budget, for example, $3,000 for an item. Over the past number of years, we spent $200, so we would change that. And I understand staff's doing the best they can and doing some of that, but yeah, my only comment is if we could get this below 10, however we do it, I would be much more comfortable.
Thank you. Councillor Orr?
I would also like to see it below 10 if possible, but unfortunately, I'm more worried about winter maintenance and the fleet reserves. They're not where they should be, and that is very much a concern to me. And it's like I want to save money here, but I want to spend money there. So that is, I don't know if we can address that anymore. And then I also just want to make a comment I don't know how it works when there is a planning decision that is made on behalf of our council. And if I could get a report on the legal advice that is cost for us to defend or deny that. I would like to see what those costs are and make sure that it's not reflective on planning, that it's probably reflective on our council.
Benson?
Well, I think, I like the idea of the questions and then bring the department heads in here and answer it. From my perspective in the past, usually there's a good reason why those numbers are the way they are. Agreeing with Councillor Kwiatkowski with regards to Councillor Wilhelm's question about the listable paramedic building. I was on the committee when we got this building, and it was an ordeal and a half to look at various sites around. So to float it off for a year, you're probably looking at 2 or 3 years down the road before you'll have a site put it, unless North Perth has a definite site in mind where they want to put it. But definition of a waste is a busload of consultants going over a cliff with one empty seat. But you do have to have consultants from time to time to help you and assist, because we don't have the expertise to look at this. So I think there's some cases where we do have to engage consultants to help us out here. So I don't think you want to paint them all with the same brush, but I don't have a problem. If you have a question, let's get it, bring the department heads in and answer it, and have an explanation as to why it is. Certainly, if you want to save you $2,000, we just don't send the snowplows out when they're in the snows, And how long would that last before you had some phone calls, you know? Like, we're in a business here of maintaining county services, and it costs money.
Sorry, I forgot to mention, I think we are also being very reactionary. Is there any way that we could have economic development come and kind of give us some ideas on how we can look to the future for the county to grow its business? Because that is part and part, like economic development does really great part. It's how we need to grow so that we can deal with this, because our expenses are just gonna keep going up. We need economic development to show us what they can bring us so that we could help pay for expenses in the future. I don't know, it's a big ask, but I'd like to see.
Councillor Kaisenberg?
Thank you, Warden Kellum. I think, you know, one of the things that happens around budgets, especially when the budgets appear somewhat severe in terms of the impact on our taxpayers, is that we have to question again, what are the service levels that we want to deliver? And I think, you know, certainly some of my colleagues have made comments on that. Obviously, the comments they're making is questioning whether there is a need for the level of services that we're applying. But I think in the big context, you know, here we are, we need to go back again and say, is this what we want the county to deliver? And, you know, I'm sensitive actually to some of the comments that have been made so far. I think the concerns that are expressed about that lag between the projections for the budget and our actuals continuing to accumulate is a fascinating problem that probably needs to be addressed through more real-time information systems and access to council for that to help with setting policy and strategy. I'm sensitive, in fact, as well to Councillor Wilhelm's comments about facilities, and you know, what is the right time for facility reviews? Is it 7 years? Is it 10 years? Is it 15 years? I don't really know the answer to that, but I certainly think that our team can bring forward some answers to that, because that can be instructive in how we make spending decisions here. I'm not wild about the tendency that happens in virtually every organization to cut out professional development and training and so forth. I think that that's just sort of foolish efforts against human capital, and to me that doesn't make much sense. It's not, the juice is not worth the squeeze in that particular case, because we want our people to be trained and capable and up and current with what's going on. So I'm not wild about that sort of nickel and diming, but I think there are places certainly where some deferrals can happen. And like Councillor Orr, I'm concerned about the winter maintenance and the fleet reserves. Those are things that certainly have me anxious, because they're amongst the most important things that we do as a county government. So you know, broadly, I think to me, what staff needs to bring forward in response to some of our questions is, what are the outcome impacts on the delivery of the services, so that we can consciously decide whether we wish to degrade our services or not.
Thank you for your comments. So I think I've said, Deputy Warden.
Through you, Warden Kellum, I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Kaisenberg's remarks about level of service. As he was speaking, it just reminded me that collectively as a group, council did go through a strategic planning session, I want to say May of 2023. Perhaps if staff could dig that report up, and just as a refresher of what we discussed and agreed upon at that time, that would kind of set the scope in terms of what our thoughts were on level of service provision at that time, and help us in our discussion going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. And again, I've said this many times, I'm not a percentage guy. I like getting down to the numbers. You know, what is 10%, 13% to us? It's totally different than the lower tiers. It's that dollar amount. And when Corey has said it's, I believe it was $100 on a assessed house at $282,000, you know, $1.99 a week. Nickel and dime in the budget is not going to get us anywhere. Yes, Councillor Wilhelm had some good comments along with everyone else, but we have listened, we'll take notes and questions back to the staff. They will meet. If you have specific questions you need answered, reach out to them as well. But services, Councillor McKenzie and Councillor Kasenbrug says, we're here to serve our constituents, and that's what it's all about. And I'll say this respectfully, again, our constituents, they have to be fiscally responsible as well. If that's broken down to $1.99, we don't want to lower our services. They have to work with us as well. And I've had these one-on-one conversations with them. And when you explain it to them, yes, it's nice to say, yeah, we took it back to council and, we lowered the taxes, but they need to work with us as well. So does anyone else have any comments at this time? Councillor Wilhelm?
Yes, I looked at the reserves and I have difficulty following what there was in '24, what's proposed for '25, and what's proposed for year end. And I don't know if council needs to set the reserve limits or the staff do, but when you start looking, you got no winter maintenance reserve. Well, you're right, we got 113,000, which isn't much, but we got over 680,000 in levy stabilization. So we have so many reserves that I think we should have them on one page. What did '24 end with? What are we adding to it or taking away? And what are we gonna end up with '25? On one page, not have to flip back and forth, because we've got a lot of different reserves. And some are going up, some are going down. It'd be nice to see where we would end up with in '25.
Thank you.
Through the word to Councillor Wilhelm, that is on one page within the budget binder. That's the proposed continuities of reserves. Those are all the reserves of Perth County, all on one page, and the continuity for the specific year. And the following page is for the forecasted amounts for projected for 2026. So those are all in that one page of the budget binder.
62. It's right here. Page 10.
Councillor McKenzie?
I guess further to Councillor Wilhelm's comments about the reserves. And, I don't think it's up to us to set the top on the reserves. I think we have to work with staff. We have to be involved with asset management. If we have a snowplow that we know we're going to get rid of within so many years, we have to know how much money we need in those reserves to replace that. And whether it's a snowplow or whether it's something to do with an office building or whatever it is. This is where the province is leading us down, that you have to be responsible for your own assets, and you got to have enough money there when it's time to replace it, that you can do that. So, I think an explanation as to what we have in the reserve and how much we're going to need of that reserve when we have to replace a certain item would be valuable tool to have.
I agree with Councillor McKenzie. I also really wonder how, when we move forward, that we aren't getting properly funded for infrastructure, and how can we grow to build our infrastructure. The government has to give us more money. We lost our OMPF funding. That has definitely affected all of the municipalities, and there needs to be a better strategy for them to properly fund the assets. They're expecting us to do a lot. We need to have stabilized funding. That's what I would like to see, but I know that might be a bit of a put.
Through the word to both Councillor McKenzie and Councillor Orr. What's coming up in 2025 is an updated asset management plan related to proposed service levels. While those proposed service levels could have an eye-opening impact on what we need to put away in reserves, what we need to do for infrastructure down the road. It is one of the reasons why we need a facility condition index, because that allows us to understand our facilities, to ensure that we maintain our facilities into the future and long into the future. But I think Perth County is in a position, very good position in relation to we still are dealing with a infrastructure gap. As indicated in my capital budget summary, that gap should hopefully be closed in 5 years, as indicated by the 2024 draft asset management plan that was approved by council, I believe a couple meetings ago. We're not in the infrastructure gaps that some other municipalities are. There are significant gaps where they have to make hard decisions related to the infrastructure that they have coming down the road. And with the impeding proposed levels of service that they have to deal with in 2025. So the situations that we're in with core assets, where we're required to ensure that our conditions are there. Our non-core assets are not done on a regular basis. The last facility condition assessment was done in 2017. It's the reason why we need to update that condition assessment in this fiscal year. It just on the onset of dealing with the proposed levels of service that we're talking about. Before we might be above the levels that council feels is sufficient. That is fantastic, but we don't know until we go through the exercise, till we ask the public related to what they feel is the level of service for roads, what the level of service for all of our infrastructure needs to be. So when we talk deferring items related to the capital budget, we have to talk about the capital levy. Will it impact the capital levy? If it's not going to impact the capital levy that was required to ensure that we have money in the reserves to do what we need to do, a deferred project, 1 year or 2 years within the capital budget, unless it impacts that capital levy, we're not impacting the request of the levy for any particular year. So when capital deferrals are happening or capital, like a cancel of a capital project, it has to be significant in nature because we're still closing a gap. The gap has to be closed first before we can talk about a project deferral that would have an impact on the overall levy that staff is recommending that we levy the taxpayer for. We did ask for an additional 1.26%, a capital levy, dedicated capital levy. That is fantastic news from council to do. We need to continue that dedicated capital levy increase to close that gap. So we're in the situation of not dealing with the capital levy deficit gap that we have, that all municipalities have, that we're in a situation when we talk service level in 25, that we're in a great position moving forward for the next 25, 50 years when I'm retired. So those are the things that need to be considered when we're talking dollars and cents, as well as the overall impacts of some of the stuff that you're indicating is what's the overall impact on the requested levy that we're talking about.
Very good comments, Corey. Councillor Kasemir, do you have your hand up?
I did. I wanted to make many of the same points that Councillor McKenzie and Councillor Orr made. I point out perhaps because there's some confusion around the reserves that perhaps it's time for council to have a little bit of a lesson or an update on the county's reserve situation. We certainly did this recently in North Perth at North Perth Council and had a very comprehensive review of our reserves, including changing policy. And maybe the time has come for us to have that here.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So what I'm proposing is the questions that you have, if you could submit them to the clerk, and I'm thinking the date, this is very important subject, by Monday. Does that give everyone enough time to submit them to Tyler by Monday? I believe the next council meeting, the agenda is pretty full. So I'd like to go to the March 6th.
Yeah, so through the warden, tabled for the March 6th meeting, we have the MSSC reports, and we might be able to move a couple of different reports around. I don't see anything that should be too impactful for that meeting. We can want to dedicate a little bit more time to the budget process. This would also allow a little bit of time for us to collate all the questions, comments from council, and then bring it back to the remainder of staff, finance, for a detailed review of what those questions are from council, and to prepare a report back to council, presentation in consultation with the department or division heads.
Is that fine with the rest of council? Go ahead.
I guess that's why I asked for separate dates for budget. You know, and here we are, now we're like pushing it off again, and are we going to be ready in March? I don't know. I would like to see dedicated meetings, separate from our regular council meetings, and we only talk about budget. We all do that at the lower tier. I don't know why we can't do it here. I don't get that.
And that is fine. We did have a couple things on the agenda that we had to get through.
I get that, Doug.
In-
So, but the 20th of February, we're too busy. So now we're flipping to the 6th of March, and then are we going to flip to April? And in May, are we going to be done? I don't
So we're
know.
requesting a special meeting.
I think we need a special meeting, and all we talk about is budget.
Can we afford that?
Okay?
What?
I said, can we afford it?
Well,
Being told that our council on our errands is too high, we want to cut it back, and then we want to.
We only had one meeting in January, right?
no,
Oh, maybe not. Sorry, that's my bad.
did I miss one?
You made it.
Aye.
Whatever. Then leave it the way it is.
Thank you. I'll discuss with the clerk. Let's see that. Are we fine with that? Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, the motion reads as follows. The council receives a 2025 budget update report for information. Moved by Warden Frantowski, second by McDermott. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Corey. On our agenda, are there any council reports that council is requesting at this time? None, there are no bylaws. Anyone wish to give notice of motion? Any announcements that's going to benefit the county of Perth? Seeing none, we do have the confirmatory bylaw, or bylaw that says, bylaw number 4016-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the county of Perth at its regular meeting held February 6, 2025 is read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed February 6, 2025. Councilor Kasenberg. By Councilor Kasenberg, second by Councilor Orr. All those in favor? It's carried. Finally, the council meeting be adjourned at approximately 10:28 a.m. Moved by Councilor McDermott, second by Councilor Wilhelm. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.